Hi everybody, welcome back to More Fun with Felt. This is Kathy and I'm so happy to have you here today. We are working on practice drills today and we are going to be focusing on wrapping. So today we're going to learn how to wrap on wire and then on a thin skewer. A lot of you will wrap on, I know, on paintbrushes, so we're going to learn that. And then I do have a special tool that is available for purchase on Serafina Fiber Art, which is her Zuli tool. It's not an advertisement. I just love it. I've owned it for a while. And I want to show you how to wrap on that because it is a very valuable tool. So we're going to be doing some practice drills, just like in volume 1 and 2. We will be, I'm going to show you how to do it, and then you will be able to practice on your own several times with the concept that I show you, and hopefully you will become a master at wrapping today. So what you're going to need today to practice along with me is a 14 gauge aluminum wire. This is one of the easiest ones to start on because it's so thick. A barbecue skewer, a paintbrush, and it really doesn't matter what size the paintbrush is. The size that you pick, if it's thicker, is going to determine how thick your piece is when it comes off. So it doesn't really matter. What you have at home is fine. The Zuli tool, if you don't have to have this to practice, but if you do end up purchasing one, I am going to show you how to do that. And then you may want to have on hand a wire cutter, of course, and then maybe a little wire plier if you want to do hands. I'll kind of throw that in there as a little bonus for you. We're just going to be using a 38 needle today, so any gauge will actually work, but the medium gauges are the best when you're wrapping. And you're going to need a core wool roving. This one is Desert Breeze, but you can use any core wool roving that you can find. Does not have to be this specific. And then I'd like you to have a carded wool in a bat. That's just where, you know, they do it on a machine and it comes off on a carding machine and it comes off in flat sheets like this because there are going to be times you're going to need to wrap this, and I want to just sort of show you the best way to do that. And the last thing is going to be a carded wool in a roving instead of a bat. So I'm going to show you how to do all of these. And as you gather the supplies, you can always come back to the video. If you don't have them all today, that's perfectly fine. As you gather them, you can come back and watch that section. So before we do anything else today, I just want to talk about the strength of the wool. I'll give you an example just with these two different pieces. This is a carded and this is a roving. I want you to imagine a telephone book for a moment. And we're going to just pretend that this is a telephone book. It's just standard white paper, but it actually is the same example. So if you had a telephone book and it was its full thickness, and you try to rip that telephone book, it's near impossible to do because it's closed and it's thick. It's many, many layers and it's close together. The layers are close together and each layer individually makes it very, very strong. If I take a page out of this telephone book and I try to tear it, I can tear it. no problem. Even a couple of pages I can tear, no problem. Alone, the pages are weaker and easier to tear. Wool is the same way. I always think of it like a telephone book, because if I were to put my hands close together and I try to tear this as it's all together and it's strong, it's building its own strength just by the pieces all being together in one spot. And I try to pull it and my hands are close together like this, there is no way that I'm breaking this wool. No way. But if I come to the end and I loosely pull it, I can break it. If I'm wrapping it, okay, and my hand is close, this is the example of a full telephone book. And that's what I want you to think of when you're watching this video today. So as my hand is close, the proximity between this finger and these fingers is the strength of that telephone book. Okay. As I go further down, my wool, it's going to get weaker and weaker. Okay, because this is basically, if I'm pulling down here, this is like a single page. So you can see if I'm down here, I'm able to break it. Or down here, I'm able to break it. Okay, so as I'm wrapping, I always want my fingers to stay close to whatever I'm wrapping. And as I'm pulling over, I don't want to pull from the end. Let me start with another piece really quick just to show you. So as I'm pulling over, I don't want to come out to the end and pull, because that's what's going to happen. I'm going to just tear my piece apart. Okay, if I come out like this and I'm pulling from out here, I'm going to lose it. So you always, when you're wrapping, the best practice that I have found is to flip it, kind of flip it over loosely, but pull tight when you're under the stick or the wire. So I kind of flip it. I'm not touching the bottom half of my wool. So I don't want to come down and pull out like this. I'm just touching up here. So I'm going to just flip it over and then pull hard and then do the next one. And I'm holding it with this finger. So that's the technique I really want you to think about when you're doing this. I'll show you with this piece as well. It acts a little differently, and we will be talking about that. But I'm going to, if I pull out here like this, see how I just break it, it's weak. But if I stay close, there's no way I'm breaking that. That right there is the number one thing that you really need to know when you're wrapping. So now keep that in mind as we go through all of these different little wrapping practices. Keep that in mind. That's your foundation, and you'll be able to wrap anything if you remember that. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's go ahead and start with the easiest wrap, which is going to be the skewer. So just take your skewer and let's start with the carded wool roving. The reason that I like to wrap with the roving is because you have really long staple lengths with the roving. So if I were to pull this right now, I'm going to get a nice long staple length. And that's just the length of the strand when I pull it. you'll see if I pull on carded, the staple length is much smaller and it's much harder to wrap. It's possible, and I'll show you how I do it, but this is just basically setting you up more for success, especially if you're working on a base, which is what we normally wrap for. So like if you're working on an armature, it's so much easier to do it with this. Okay, so what I want you to do is just go ahead and pull one staple length for now. And then we want to thin this out, especially if you were working on wire, you'll want it as thin as you can, basically get it. But thin it out. So I'm going to divide this in two. It's already this beautiful staple length. I'm just going to sort of rub my fingers slowly and very carefully across it. This is going to lengthen it just a little bit more for me, and it's going to take a lot of the air out of this wool. So you take your piece. You don't want to start on the very, very fuzzy part. You're going to start where it's a little bit thicker. Hold your fingers there. And then the fuzzy part, you're going to hold down. Start close to the end of the stick so you don't have to drag it so far when you take it off. You're going to hold down with your finger. I'm going to bring my thumb over and I'm going to hold part of that down with my thumb. And I'm going to stay close and I'm going to wrap. And I want to wrap at least 4 times in this one spot. This is starting a good foundation for my wrap. Okay, so I did it 4 times there. Now I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle towards the end of the stick. So I'm going to hold tight, 45-degree angle, move my finger up to hold it, hold tight, 45-degree angle, move my finger up, my thumb's still in the same spot, and I'm going to keep doing that. Tight, 45-degree angle, tight, 45-degree angle, tight, 45-degree angle. I'm not moving my fingers all the way down as I'm pushing it over because I don't want to thin my wool out. If I do that, if I pull all the way down, I'm going to thin my wool out. I don't want to do that. I'm just holding the wool in this one spot right here, going over and releasing. Okay, when you get to the end of your section that you're making, you're going to want to again tight and come back at a 45-degree angle back. You can still use your finger to hold it. Tight, 45-degree angle back, tight, 45-degree angle back. Make sure that they are overlapping. Tight, 45-degree angle, and just keep repeating this until you get back to where you started. Now I have a little less to work with, but it doesn't matter. Wool is wool. Okay, when I get to the end, I like to just roll the stick, and I'm coming right back to where I started with that good foundation, and I'm going to roll in between my fingers, and I'm felting it. The friction will felt it. Come to the other end, roll that between your fingers, and then you can roll the entire thing between your fingers. Okay, that felt it so that when you take it off, it should keep the form. The oil from your fingers helps as well. Okay, and now I can push this off. It's It's nice and tight, and it stays in my little form. So what I would like you to do, I'm going to show you that one more time a little bit faster. And then what I would like you to do is make 10 of these. That's going to be your practice drill for wrapping on a skewer. Let me show you one more time a little bit faster. Use a little bit thicker piece this time. You don't want to ever go too thick though, because it gets hard to control. Okay, so go ahead and pause the video and make 10 of these. All right, so now we're going to do the same thing, only we're going to do this with carded wool and the batting. So with the batting, it's a little trickier. You're going to have a flat piece of batting. I like to open it up and look for the most consistent thickness. So you can see here, it's very, very thin in this area. So that's not very consistent. This part does look very consistent to me, but right here, there's a little bit of a bulkiness. So that's thicker. So I'm going to choose this part of my wool. You can see it's almost like looking at the grain of the wood going with the grain, like if you were painting or staining wood. But I go with the grain of the wool, and that's how you should pull it. So you can see that as it was carded in this direction. And if I pull, I'm gonna pick like a 1/2 of an inch, and I'm putting my 2 fingers together here, and I'm gonna go down and I'm gonna hold it very tightly and pull about a 1/2 of an inch all the way down, going with the grain. And this is just giving you a better shot at having a good wrap, and I'll show you why. And pull that off. If I don't go with the grain and I try to pull it apart, I'm just going to get little chunks, and it's not going to give me a good wrap. I'm going to keep having to start over and over on my wrap. So this is a key for success, basically, going with the grain, grabbing about a half of an inch, very tightly pulling it off, keeping it as whole as possible. Okay. I'm going to start with a thinner side. So this is thinner and that's thicker. I want to give myself as many chances for success of a good wrap as possible. So I don't want to thin out at the end. I'd rather have my end, be nice and strong. So I'm going to start with the thinner part, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the roving. I'm going to come down a little bit from the fringe, and it's going to be basically the same wrap, but this one is a little bit trickier. I did not want to draft this out in the beginning, because if I draft it out, I'm going to lose it. So I'm going to hold the fringe, and I'm going to hold this very, very tightly. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did, stay very close, and I'm going to do 2 or 3 wraps in one spot. So I want to stay close. I'm not putting my fingers down that wool at all. I'm just very lightly pushing it over and then pulling tight. That's 2. I'm going to do 1 more. Okay, so I feel like I have a good foundation. Now I'm going to go up at a 45-degree angle, and you're going to watch my fingers are never going to draft this wool. I'm just holding right here, pushing it over at a 45-degree angle and letting go. Okay, but then I come back, hold it tight again, push it over tightly, 45-degree angle, let it go. The reason that I'm doing that is that, if my fingers flow down on this wool, it's going to thin it out for me, and I don't want that. So I'm just holding here tightly, pulling that over, coming back right here. Don't pull your fingers all the way down the wool. Okay. And keep doing 45-degree angle, 45-degree angle, moving your finger up as you go. Okay. Now I'm at the end. I'm going to come back tightly, 45-degree angle back. Like that. Tight. Stay close to your skewer. 45-degree angle back. Stay close. See how this one is much fuzzier? It's okay. Don't let that worry you. Okay, now I'm back at the beginning. I want to actually come a little bit past my beginning because I don't want it to be thicker than the rest. And then I've got a little bit left, a little tail. I'm going to just wrap it right around the skewer several times. This could all be felted in at the end, so you don't have to worry about it. But where I started and where I ended is just about the same thickness. So now I'm going to roll it between my fingers, top and bottom. And then the piece. Okay, and now since this is a carded wool, I do like to take my needle and hold your skewer down and just very gently, any pieces that look a little bit big, just pop down on the sides of the skewer. Basically, you're just felting it a little bit just to give it more of a chance to stay together. Don't have to do a lot. Okay. And another chance for it staying together, if you want, is you can roll it between your hands like this. Anything that you can do to further your felting process before you remove it from the skewer is very helpful. Okay, so now I'm going to put my fingers beginning of the roll where we started, and I'm just going to pull it off and put it on the mat. Okay, I am going to do that one more time for you, a little faster, just so you can watch it again, and then I want you to do 10 of these. Here I'm finding it a little thicker where I started, and it seems a little looser, so I'm giving it more of a stab than I normally would. But as you're felting and you find these things, that's what you're looking for. So if you're not seeing a consistency, you need to just fix that with your needle. In this case, I definitely want to roll it because it didn't look as consistent. Okay, go ahead and pause the video, do 10 of those, and come back. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is learn how to wrap on a paintbrush. This will give you a little bit of a bigger cylinder. And I'm going to go ahead, go back to my roving, pull a staple length, and I'm going to go ahead and separate that so it's not super thick. I'm going to draft it out just to get it to its full natural length. Hold it at the thickest point of its beginning, so I want the fringe loose. Again, with my forefinger, I'm going to hold that down. You can even tuck the fringe over if it gets in your way. You can just tuck it between your two fingers. It's fine. Tight. And I'm going to wrap right there 3 times at least. Okay, this gives me the good foundation. It's nice and tight now. Now, one thing that you'll see as you have a thicker piece, I just want to point out that I don't want to bunch this up and make it like this, which is what I see a lot of people do. Your wool always has to stay flat. So see how that's nice and flat? It has to stay flat against what you're wrapping. So against the paintbrush, I want this to be nice and flat as I go at my 45-degree angle. So stay close, stay flat. Okay, stay close, stay flat. Now, I want to be able to come back, and I only have this much, so I'm going to go ahead and start coming back now. If I had a longer piece, I could go a little bit longer. And I'm going back at a 45-degree angle. It's getting thinner, so my flat piece is going to be thinner than you saw in the beginning. Okay, and now I'm just going to roll it. When you get to the end of your wool, just roll it. On this one, I'm going to show you how to make it just a little bit thicker. You're going to take your other half of our staple length. Go ahead and draft that out. Hold it in the appropriate place. And do the exact same thing. So I'm going to start with 3 wraps right there, tight, 45-degree angle, and flat. Sometimes in the beginning for me, it helped if I would say those steps to myself over and over. So I'm like, don't pull down the end of the wool, 45-degree angle, hold it flat, 45-degree angle, come back. And you know, it helped me to remember, like muscle memory. Okay, I got to the end, so I'm just going to wrap it back in. Sometimes you're not going to make it all the way back to the end, and that's okay. So we did that twice. It's a little thicker. So in this case, since it is a little thicker, we will use the needle. Not necessary to go all the way through to the mat. You just want to give it some little stabs. You can roll the paintbrush around. You just want to secure it. If you want to roll it between your hands, you can right now. Especially if you're just learning, this piece here does really help just to continue that felting process. Once you get better at wrapping, you're not going to need to do that as much. Okay, grab it and pull it off. Now I felted that really tight. There you go. The tighter, the better. Okay, I'm going to do that for you again, and then I want you to make 10 of these. Just let me grab another piece. So whenever you get to the end, that's when you're just going to start turning your stick. No matter where you are, even if you don't make it all the way to the end, you just start turning your stick and you keep pulling it as far down to the end as you can get it. Okay, oh, it was a little bit shorter. That's okay. So go ahead and make 10 of those and come back for the next step. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do the carded wool on the paintbrush. So on this one, this is a good example of this being too thick. So I can actually tell when I'm starting to wrap it, it's already gonna start bunching up on me. So I definitely pulled that too thick. I'm gonna divide this in half. You'll feel it in your, in your wrap. If it's already feeling like it's gonna give you a hard time in the very beginning of your wrap, you definitely wanna stop. Don't try to make it all the way to the end. I'm gonna choose this one because it seems, so let me show you why I would choose this one over that one. So this one, you can see the consistency is very consistent from beginning to end. This one, there's this little thin spot here. So as I'm pulling and I'm turning, that's gonna thin out and could possibly break on me. Either one of these could break, but this one has more of a potential of breaking. So I'm not gonna choose this one. I'm gonna choose the one that I feel is gonna do the best job for me. Especially with the carded wool, you want to stay as close to the paintbrush as you can. And that's just because the fibers are so short. Even if you see some vegetable matter in there, don't worry about it. Not while you're wrapping. Worry about it later. Coming back, 45-degree angle. Always the same steps. So once you get these steps down, just start with 2 or 3 wraps, 45-degree angle, keep the wool flat, stay tight to the stick. Basically, those are the steps. I always do the first end and then the other end. Had a little fuzz, I'm just bringing it right up in here and just felting it in. This one's pretty tight. There's not a lot to stick down on this one. Okay. It's a good wrap. So I'm going to do it again for you. So I can see this is the grain right here. Pull some of that off. As I'm turning it over, I'm really not wanting to pull. I'm flipping it over, and then as it's hanging there, then it's when I'm pulling. And let me show you why. So if I were to pull as I'm turning it over, look what's going to happen. It's going to thin itself out and just come right apart in your hands. I do, you know, I had that problem in the very beginning. I also do see a lot of people doing that and then having to start over. So if something like that did happen, you would just start right back where you were. You don't have to start the whole thing over again. You're just going to start right back where you were, one solid wrap straight over, and then keep going. One of my big things that I like to say, one of my sayings for felting is everything is fixable in felting, and that is so certainly true. No matter what happens, you can always fix it. So you can definitely see here, it's a little thicker in the center just because of that, you know, the extra pull. So that's where I'm really going to want to focus if I have to stick it with my needle. Make sure we get that center nice and tight. Okay. So go ahead and do 10 of these. Pause the video and come back. So on this example, I am going to use the Zuli tool. I know a lot of you guys don't have this. So this is the example. I'll go ahead and use the roving. Now this is a carded roving. So this is a carded bat. This is a core wool roving. This is kind of a combination of the two. So it's carded wool, but it's also in a roving. And the roving is just basically that it comes thin, about 3 to 4 inches thick, and it's in a roll. That's roving, okay? What makes it easier with a roving is it's easier to pull because you can choose your length. So I'm just gonna choose about 6 inches or so. And then it's because of the way that it's carded and wrapped, you can get a much easier pull. You already know the grain of your wool, and it's going from top to bottom here. And so you can get a much easier pull. So you're still going to have to hold your fingers close all the way during your pull. You don't want to just pull it off, and the reason being is that it'll thin out on you. So for this tool, I'm just going to show you the roving, the carded roving, okay? I do, just like on the other roving, I do want to go ahead and draft this out a little because it's thick. I just want to get it as flat and thin as I can without creating weak points in it. I don't want to make a big gap. I just want to get some of the air out and make it a little flat for myself. And we're going to do the same thing. This one is so thick I don't need 3. I'm just going to do 2 wraps straight. I'm holding tight, going over at a 45-degree angle, holding tight, going over, holding tight, going over. When I get kind of to the end of that, I'm going to go back, 45-degree angle, pulling tight, always pulling tight, staying flat. I'm at the end, so I'm going to start turning my stick. That's a big tip because a lot of times if you're trying to keep wrapping and wrapping, you'll lose it. So when you get to the end of your wool, always turn your stick and keep your fingers on your wrap. Careful because this is wood, just like the paintbrush, so you don't want to break your needles. Just go on the edge. If you want to turn it and do it again, you can, because this is a little bit thicker. Try to get it at an angle where you can see. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time, a little faster for you. I think it's good to see it faster because that's the speed you'll be going. When I'm teaching, I go slower, but I want you to also see, you know, the actual speed that you'll be going. It's easier to go faster. When you're going really slow, it's harder to stay in control. Always tight. Another tip is just don't let go. If you feel like you want to let go, just don't until it's all down. Alrighty. If you have this tool and you want to try this, you can do it with any of the wool that you have. It does not have to be a carded roving, but if you have a carded roving, give it a try. I think you'll actually really like it. All right, so do that 10 times and then we will come back and work on wire. All right, so for this, go ahead and cut yourself 10 pieces of wire about 8 to 10 inches long. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to show you in this how to actually wrap the full length of the wire, because that's what you'll be doing in many cases. You're going to be doing either armature, or you're going to have a wire on an armature or in a piece that needs to be wrapped. This is one of the hardest things for people to do, And so I'm going to show you just some easy ways to get through it. And hopefully it won't be, you know, a challenge for you in the future. So something that I forgot to mention in the beginning is glue. You do not have to use glue. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But when I very first started out, I found that glue was very helpful for me. It just helped to secure the wool as I was wrapping on the wire. So you can get a clear, or you could get the white Elmer's glue. It doesn't matter, okay? Before you put the glue on though, let's go ahead and get our roving. To wrap wire, the easiest way to wrap it is with a roving. I recommend, especially if it's a piece that you're doing and you are building up core wool, go ahead and purchase a roving core wool just to make it easier and more smooth on your piece. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to go ahead and start at maybe about a 10-inch pull. I'm going to go ahead and pull a bigger piece. Okay. And I'm going to pick about 1/2 inch of thickness. And I'm going to use my fingers to separate that all the way down. Put that pull aside because I'm going to come back to it. Draft it out. You definitely want to get it ready before you apply it to the wire or apply the glue to the wire. So I'm drafting it out. I want to make sure, and this is part of setting yourself up for success, I want to make sure it's thick, you know, in all the pieces and strong. If I have a really weak section, I'm going to pull another piece. Okay, so now with your wire, take your glue, and I'm going to give myself about 2 inches of holding room here. And you're just going to take your glue, and you don't have to do this crazy, like don't do too much where it's dripping, but you're just going to put a little bit of glue up the wire. Okay, that's just enough. I don't know if you can really see that, but I just put a little tiny bit just out of the tip up the wire. Now this wrapping concept is the same. Do not be intimidated because it's wire. It's exactly the same what we learned on the skewer and all the wooden tools. Okay, so you're going to hold it the same way you did. If you want to take this little extra piece and just tuck it between your fingers, that makes it a little easier. You want to stay close to the wire, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So we're going to flip it over, pull close, flip it, pull close, flip it. I'm giving myself 2 or 3 really good wraps in one spot for a good foundation. And now I'm going to go at a 45-degree angle, and my finger is going to start trailing up. The glue is just helping hold this in place. You're wanting, when you do wire, see how thin that is? You're wanting a nice, flat, thin wrap. Okay, I'm going to start moving my thumb and finger up as I go. I do not want to move my hands down the wool, because if I move my hands down the wool, what's going to happen is I'm going to make my wool thinner and I'm going to lose it. So I just want to flip it over. And what matters is the tightness as I pull. So I flipped it over, I'm pulling, flipped it over again, pulling. flip, pulling, keeping it tight, moving my fingers up, flip. Now once you've done this a lot, you can keep your fingers there as you're flipping it over, but just stop. Don't keep moving your fingers down the wool. So it would look kind of like this. See, but as you do that, it starts to get jumbled. So you have to keep that flat. If you start to see it getting jumbled, go back and readjust. If you have to straighten your wire out, just do it. Keep looking back and making sure that it's not bunching on you. Okay, and I'm coming to the end. Now this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get as close to that end as I can because I want to cover my whole wire. I'm going to get as close to the end as I can with that thickness. And now I'm just going to do what we did in the beginning. I'm going to wrap just a few times around, and then I'm going to come back once. I don't want to make this part too thick. Come back once, okay? So that's a good foundation there. I have some extra. I don't want to go backwards right now. I'm just going to sort of stay right here. I'm just going to wrap it up the wire. Each time you wrap, there'll be a little bit of a different scenario. Okay, so let me just show you where we are. Move my hand. I'm going to straighten this out for you. So that gave me a really thin wrap all the way up the wire. I can let go because I wrapped 3 or 4 times here. I wrapped 3 or 4 times there. I can let go and it's not going to spiral back on me. Anything I had left over, I just sort of drafted out over the end where there's glue. So that's not going to spiral back on me. So now if I wanted to wrap to the end, I can start the process over right here. So I'm not going to make a big lump right here. I'm going to start that process right here and come to the end, and I'll show you how to end it off on the wire. So we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch. Draft that. Always setting yourself up for success when you pull your piece. Okay, now I'm going to take this, start just like we would if we were starting the beginning. Don't let it freak you out that you're in the middle of it, okay? I don't want to come on this thick part because I don't want to bubble. So I'm going to start right where that thin part is. Get my finger there. Okay, I'm going to pull down almost to the end of that fuzz, and then I'm going to do my 2 or 3 wraps in one spot right there. Okay, now I'm just going to do what we normally do. Go to the end of the wire, and I'm just going to pull tight, go over, over, over. Keep doing that. Making sure it's consistent with the rest of the wire. Okay. As I get to the end of the wire, there's a few things that I can do depending on what the piece is that you're working with, okay? So let me show you the first one. So the first one is I can come up to the end all the way to the end, pop a little dot of glue right there, just a tiny one, and then come back. I wrapped it twice and now I'm coming back. Little bit of a 45-degree angle, really tight, staying flat, and then I would just go down to finish the piece, like to finish my wool. Okay, another thing that I can do, start over here, is I can get to the end. So I'm going to wrap up to the end. Right there. Hold it between your two fingers, and then you can take your needle nose pliers and you can pinch that down on itself, clamp it down nice and tight, and then like go over it one more time and you can finish there. I would, in that case, pull this off, get as much wool off as I could, and then go ahead and finish it out by coming back down. It's much harder when you do it slowly. And if you felt like you needed to, you could put another little dab right there just to help hold that in place. You can turn your wire, just like we did on the skewer. I turned my skewer. You can turn your wire. So anything that you see that looks fuzzy, you can just roll between your fingers. You can even roll the whole thing if you want, just to felt it. And that's a really great wrap for wire right there. Okay, so those are two ways to end it. Let me show you that again, and then I'll have you do this 10 times. The two that I pulled, I'm just going to point out. So this one's thicker than this one. I'm going to go ahead and put that one to the side, and I want to go ahead and keep them the same thickness. So I'm going to re-pull. So those are the things that you need to be looking at, like I said, to set yourself up for success. I want the same thickness across my entire wire. So the more that I prep for that, the better that the wire is going to look at the end. Those are all little tricks that will help you have a more professional look at the end of your piece. Just going to go ahead and draft both of these out. Okay, so let me show you how I would do it if I wasn't talking to anybody and I was just on my own. This is just getting in my way, so I'm just going to wrap it around my wire a little bit just to get it out of my way for now. When you're rolling at the end, make sure you're rolling in the direction that you wrapped your wire, because if not, you can unwrap it. I'm just tightening up this bottom down here. Okay, so there you have it. Nice wrapped wire. Go ahead and do 10 of those, and then come back just for some more tips and tricks. Okay, so now that you're back, I just want to show you with one of these pieces here. Once you take them off your skewer or your, your wood, whichever you're using, you want to make sure that this stays nice and strong, nice and firm before you put it on your piece. So let's just say this is an arm for a little bear or something. What I want to do is I want to take my 38. I'm going to hold this very tightly because it will unravel if we mess with it too much. I'm going to hold the piece down because I don't want any of that wool to unravel. And I'm going to poke from the very end in. And I'm kind of capping it off there. So I'm not going into the mat, I'm going into the arm. I'm going to poke in and just basically cap it off and secure that end piece. Okay. Now in this case, This would have to stay fringy because it's going to be attached to the bear. Okay, so I flipped it over and do the same thing again. And I'm just basically capping it off. This is going to keep my piece from unraveling at the end. You just want to do that until it looks even. And then, since this part is going to be the fringe going onto the bear, I'm going to hold what I just capped off and I'm going to hold my fringe down. That way this middle part does not unravel as I'm working on it. I'm not stabbing through to the mat. I'm just giving it nice light little pokes here to keep it from unraveling and keep it in its shape. I poked down. I'm going to poke towards myself. And then I'm going to poke away from myself. Flip it over and do that again. Then on the back side, you're just going to do the same thing. Just go straight down and then angled to the left, and you can turn it around and do it the opposite angle. Now this is where if I was actually making a bear, I would go ahead and bring in my two 42 triangles in a multi-tool and just continue strengthening this up and shaping it. But this video is not about that. But that is definitely how you would do it, and just attach it with the fringe. Okay, the last thing that I want to show you is how I do a hand. And this would be, I'm not going to do a hand with fingers. If you want to see that, I have that in full detail in my Chip the Christmas Mouse masterclass. One of the lessons in that is a full hand, completely wrapped every single little finger. And you can catch that there. This is just going to be a simple, like a little paw or something like that. When you have your wire coming off of the body, and this is the arm, let's say, take your needle nose pliers and just bend like a little hook at the end. And then you take the same wrapping techniques that we already learned, and you're going to come up to the little hook on the end here. And what I like to do first is I like to go inside of it. Let me just get my boundaries by moving my thumb up. And then, so I've gone inside of it first, just for strength. Now I'm going to cover the outside of it. And then when you get to the end, you're going to come up. I'm holding it there. You're going to come up and then you're going to come back. And then just go around it a few times. If you need a little dot of glue just to hold that last little piece, you can definitely do that. And you can wrap that a couple of times if you want. If you need a thicker arm or a thicker paw, you can definitely wrap that a couple of times, but that's basically how you do it. So I didn't want you to leave learning how to wrap wire without knowing how to wrap like a little hand or a little palm. That's the easiest way to do it. Let me show you that one more time. So I'm gonna pull my wool the right size to set myself up for success. I'm gonna take my wire, fold this over, add my glue, go ahead and hold it down. Start working my angle. This side, I just gonna kind of twist it around a little just because I'm about to release my fingers from there. And I don't wanna lose it all. Okay. And keep going. Keep using your thumb and your forefinger, following your wool. Come inside first for strength, and that's a little bit closed. So let me get inside there. You leave a little gap. Come inside for strength, and then go on the outside. Hold it. Go back over, and come back down. You're always going to have another little, different little ending. But there you go. So that's how you do it. I really hope that this has helped you today. I will be coming out with more of these practice drills. You can do these as many times as you want until you get that down. That's just an added little bonus. I wasn't planning on showing you that, but I think it'll be helpful. And then if you, get really good and you want to share that success with me, you can find me on Facebook. It is More Fun with Felt with spaces in between. You can find me on Instagram. It's just the @ More Fun with Felt. And definitely, find me and message me if you have any questions or leave a comment below. Please like and subscribe if this has benefited you today. I truly hope that it has. And I will see you in the next practice drill.